Welcome back to another episode of Paranormally Correct. I'm your ghostly host with the most, Sarah, and today I'll be attempting a reaction video. This is my very first one if you don't count the ones I did on Google Hangouts, but be sure to watch those too. Take it easy on me, folks. This is a hand-edited reaction video. I didn't use Open Broadcaster like everybody else. I wish I had have. Our first victim is Jeff Pilkington. His original video will be linked in the description, so be sure to watch that too. Jeff's going to tell us about some Jim Carrey Mandela Effects today. Let's check it out.
Welcome back. Hello everyone, Jeff Pilkington, Launch Industries here. We have a great Mandela Effect video for you today.
It's a great Mandela Effect. It better be great.
Jim Carrey. Yes, Jim Carrey. We all know Jim Carrey. We love Jim Carrey. He's been around for a long time. Well, today we're going to talk about how he connects to all of this Mandela Effect, false memories.
Okay, but it's going to be hard to convince me that Jim Carrey has anything at all to do with the Mandela Effect. Just throwing that out there.
Stuff going on. Is the Mandela Effect a false memory? Is that what's going on? Are we misremembering things that have happened?
Yeah.
That's what I think it is.
Yeah, obviously. Isn't it easier to believe that it's mass false memory? I don't know if that's a term or if I just made that up, but it's easier to believe that it's mass false memory than a parallel universe interfering with our universe. I mean, at least I think so. I think that's more logical. And I'm not a logical person at all, so...
A lot of people think it is. Some people think it's parallel universes. Some people think it's, multiverse, different time travel.
Okay, when I made my Mandela Effect video, I mentioned time travel, and everybody in the comments was like, it's not time travel. This has nothing to do with time travel. It depends on where you get your information, but I swear that there were many different websites and also videos that I watched that said, it could have something to do with time travel. That was the first theory that I heard, is that people were traveling back in time to change movies, pop culture. But nothing else, just pop culture.
It could be anything, I guess, but I believe it's false memory, but you never know. Who knows? Anyway, Jim Carrey, what I want to say about him today is it's fascinating. He actually has been saying Mandela Effects.
I think he means that he's just incorporated with Mandela Effects. I'm not entirely sure what he means. I guess he's going to tell us. I guess he's going to explain it.
In his movies throughout the past 25 years, before we even knew they were Mandela Effects, a lot of his lines in movies, what everybody's talking about, ones that I've talked about here, he was saying in movies all along.
We're going to skip ahead just a little bit, so I'm going to cut out like a couple of minutes of this intro so we can hurry up and get to the alleged Mandela Effect part.
Without further ado, first off, you know that he's done some movies. He was in a movie called The Truman Show, which was about kind of a false reality that had been created, so that kind of tied in. And he was also in a movie called Bruce Almighty, where he basically was a guy who was awakened by... he was doing some misdeeds and his life was awakened and he realized things for the better. So he's done these spiritual movies in the past.
No, I see where you're going with this. Yeah, I think he's done a couple of movies that are kind of along those lines, I think. I would also consider Ace Ventura 1 and 2 a spiritual experience type movie.
So those two kind of led up to it. And then he did a movie a while back with Ron Howard called Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Now, this is actually happens to be a Mandela Effect.
No? Really? No.
Because a lot of people remember the movie not being titled How the Grinch Stole Christmas or Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. They just remember it as The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. What do you remember?
Well, obviously, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, because that's a complete sentence and it makes more sense as a title. That's something that I notice all the time about these Mandela Effects, where it kind of involves, like the effect involves the wording of a phrase or a sentence or a statement. You'll notice that what people claim was, I don't know how they even, well, okay, let me back up. There's like the original way, which they would say is not necessarily the original way. They would say you're from a different multiverse, so it was the way that you experienced it. We're just going to call it the original way and then the fake Mandela way, for lack of a better way to say this. I don't even know where I'm going with this at this point because, oh my God, the mental gymnastics, guys. But no, seriously, I mean, some phrases in pop culture that they believe have been changed don't make any sense the way that they claim they're supposed to be. They make sense the original way, like How the Grinch Stole Christmas, because it doesn't make as much sense to say the Grinch that stole Christmas or the Grinch who stole Christmas.
The Grinch Who Stole Christmas or Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas? I don't know about that one for me. I remember Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, but people remember it the other way. Not what the book was originally. The book was How the Grinch Stole Christmas, but people remember the movie with a different title. They remember it just being titled The Grinch Who Stole Christmas.
Well, the whole story is how he did it. It's focused on the process in which the Grinch stole it. How he, the beginning of his character, who was cold and lonely, his character arcs as he goes through the process of devising a heist plan, basically. So doesn't it make more sense based on the context of the story that it's how, not the... I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, okay, maybe that's what the book was called, but that's not what the movie was called. I mean, yeah, they change titles and names and they minor details and stuff like that. As long as the movie translation still gets the point across, they can take a little creative liberty to change a few things here and there, but it just doesn't make sense to have to change the title. If you think about it, what would be the benefit of barely rewording the title? I think it's one of those things where people just got lazy. They just got a little lazy.
And it's ironic because Jim Carrey was the lead. That's number one. A second one is, now there's a Mandela effect around Sally Field.
Are you going to say that her name used to be Sally Fields? Because no, it didn't. I think the Mandela effect with Sally Field versus Sally Fields is kind of like how people, some people will say anyways with an S at the end instead of anyway. Another one of those things where people get lazy with articulating things.
When she was receiving an award years ago, she went up on stage and she said this line, which was, you like me, you really like me.
Sally Field, to my knowledge, never said, you like me, you really like me. As far as I remember, that was in a Jim Carrey movie.
You love me, you really love me. People remember it, her saying that. Well, what's ironic about that whole thing is she actually didn't, this is so crazy. She actually didn't say that at all. She just said, you like me right now. So, you like me right now. That was it. There was no, you like me, you really like me. It was just, you like me right now. Anyway, the ironic one about this Mandela effect is Jim Carrey, in a movie back in the 90s titled The Mask, actually said the same thing. He went up, he received an Oscar, and he said, you love me, you really love me.
Yeah, so I think this is self-explanatory at this point. Sally Field says, you like me, ... And Jim Carrey says, you love me. And it's kind of getting, tangled up. It's just, guys, this stuff is explainable if you just, not immediately decide that it has to be some sort of conspiracy or some sort of multiverse interference or something like that. I think this is such a great example of everything wrong with the Mandela effect.
So he said the Mandela effect before we remember the Mandela effect happening.
Okay, but it's not a Mandela effect.
There's a Mandela effect that a lot of people remember, which is rather interesting. The mirrors and the side mirrors in your car, remember how it used to have the side mirrors, they said something? What do you remember that saying? People remember it saying that objects in the mirror may be closer than they appear. Well, it never said that. It just said objects in mirror are closer than they appear. There was no maybe.
Okay, come on. Who really memorizes this kind of stuff? Nobody memorizes things like this. Whether it's, writing on your mirror in your car or a street sign or maybe a sign in a subway. these are not things that you read every time you look at them, every time you pass them. Hopefully, you read them once, the message of whatever is being displayed sticks with you, but you don't necessarily remember word for word what these types of things say. So it's kind of unreasonable to say, oh my God, what do you guys remember about this obscure text on your mirror? Nobody just sits around and memorizes that kind of stuff. You would be really reaching to try to use this as a Mandela effect, because nobody's really going to remember word for word accurately.
May be closer, but people remember it as objects in mirror may be closer than they appear. It's always been objects in mirror are closer than they appear.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but let me ask you this. Why would they put maybe closer when they know for a fact that this particular car part is going to show you a reflection that absolutely is closer? There's no variable there. You know what I mean? It's not like one of those things where, at a certain time of the day in the right type of sunlight, this semi-truck barreling towards you might possibly look a little closer. No, they know that those mirrors are distorted. Why would it have ever said that it may appear closer? No, just no.
What do you remember there? That's interesting. But the funny part about it is in Ace Ventura, when the guy's bashing his car in, what does Jim Carrey say? Well, let's go to him.
Warning, assholes are closer than they appear!
Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, on the case.
Okay, does your mirror also say asshole?
Let's go right to Ace Ventura 2, When Nature Calls. Ace went to Africa. Now, do you remember the game Monopoly?
I still play Monopoly at least once a year if I can find somebody to play it with me. Nobody really likes board games anymore, though.
Everybody remembers the Monopoly guy having a monocle on his eye. Monocle. One eyeglass. The Monopoly guy never had a monocle. Never, ever, 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 ever. So we are misremembering that, or we're parallel universed, or whatever you want to call it. But never had that. However, Ace Ventura 2, our good friend Jim had an encounter with the Monopoly guy. Let's go to Jim again.
Who is this ghastly man?
Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. And you must be the Monopoly guy.
Okay, let's debunk this alleged Mandela effect real quick. Here's my theory on why it does not make sense for the Monopoly man to have a monocle. Monocles were not invented until the 1700s, but then by 1830 they had mostly been replaced by the recent invention of eyeglasses. The game Monopoly was invented in 1935, and the character or mascot, the little person in question here, his name was Rich Uncle Pennybag O'Neill, oddly enough, what a cute name, was patterned after a wealthy American progressive era businessman known as J.P. Morgan. I'm sure most of you probably recognize that name. Very famous name. But to my knowledge, Morgan didn't wear a monocle, and he didn't even wear glasses. Morgan was born in 1837 and he died in 1913, so he didn't really live within the era where he might have been inclined to wear monocles. So as you can see, there's really no explanation as to why the Monopoly man would have had one or should have had one. I'll tell you who did have a monocle. Mr. Peanut, the Planters mascot. You guys know who I'm talking about? Mr. Peanut had a monocle and a top hat. Of course, Monopoly man, Pennybag, whatever his name is, he has a top hat. And my theory on this is people somehow along the way misconstrued the two characters and their traits, possibly because the art style is so similar. I mean, doesn't it make more sense than to think that there's all these universes doing stuff and bleeding through? I don't know. That just seems far more insane to me than just admitting I don't remember things correctly.
Okay, that's strange. We're now 4 for 4 these things are tying into him. Bizarre.
Very bizarre indeed, Mr. Jeff. We're going to wrap it up here, guys, because this video is tremendously long already. I don't want to make it any longer. I will link Jeff's video in the description so you can go check it out, because he does continue on a little further with some other alleged Mandela Effects, so definitely go watch his video. Don't tell him I reacted to it. He might get mad. I hope he doesn't. I hope that if he does see it, that he's like, oh, okay, this weird hillbilly girl has a good point. That's probably not going to happen. Anyway, great video from Jeff. Do check it out. Hopefully he doesn't mind me reacting to it. And I will return, guys, with some more paranormal themed reactions. If you have any videos that you want me to do a reaction to, please send those to me by way of any of my social media, and I'll check it out. Please feel free to like or dislike this video. Either way is great. I appreciate your feedback. And also, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe and stick around for more crazy videos. I have lots of cool stuff coming up, so you definitely don't want to miss that. Until then, don't get eaten by Dogman and don't get abducted by aliens. I will talk to you guys later.